Welcome to the Land and Blast podcast. I'm Sam Terrell.
I'm Chris Martin.
And today we're joined by Daniel Bifano from the Bifano Home Team. Also, Deputy Dan.
That's right.
A new title.
Yeah, Jackson County Sheriff Deputy for sure.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is fun to kind of be outside. How's it feel being outside of your podcast?
Outside of my podcast? Yeah, this is nice. I'd actually prefer it would be like this, but this is a logistical nightmare, you guys.
We got this set up in like a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
5
you
minutes.
did good. Chris is almost sweating though because he's been running back and forth.
It's warm.
It is warm.
Beautiful sunny day here in October.
Yeah.
But Chris, you want to take us through kind of your relationship with Daniel? You and I have met twice, but you guys have a longer history together.
Yeah. I met him when he was a buyer, not a broker, not a deputy. He was
Buying a house.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
you were referred Frago.
Yeah, Jim Frigo referred me to the Venuti group, and referred me to you specifically.
Yeah.
And you were a listing agent at the time, and so you referred me to Miss Molly. And but yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah.
And then I got my license. So
Yeah, and I don't remember what prompted you. Was it Molly that had something to do with you getting your license, or was it just something you were interested in? I don't remember that part
yeah,
of it.
we had a conversation about like the Venuti group and what Nancy did for her agents and things like that. And then I met with Nancy, and as soon as I met with Nancy, I knew it was meant to be at that time, and I pretty much signed up for the class when I got home from talking to Nancy. So
I think a few people have had that experience.
yeah.
Anyway, for those of you who don't know, Nancy is the same person who trained me, trained Daniel. There's a lot of people who have that same similar story.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we are going to talk about shooting.
Yes.
We are going to talk about some guns. But we have a car coming.
We have a car coming.
We're in the mountains. It's public land.
Public land. We're all public landowners.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear a little bit just about your history, how you came from California. And I don't remember where. I know the Central Coast somewhere down there.
Yeah, correct.
Not a gun guy. Not really like an outdoors guy in the sporting sense, but not really an outdoors guy. Take me through the iterations from there to Jackson County Sheriff.
Yeah.
And kind of how some of the mental shifts you made.
Yeah, no, I think that when my wife and I lived in California, we had always kind of wanted to live in the Pacific Northwest. We wanted to get out of, we lived in Vegas for some time and we lived in Fresno, and we really just wanted to get out of kind of that city lifestyle. And so we were looking at places up in the Pacific Northwest. We really stumbled upon Grants Pass. We got up here, I met you and I met our friend Dan Doyle, and you guys essentially introduced me to firearms.
Apologize to your wife.
I
I probably owe her a major apology.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, just over that mountain is the first time that I've ever actually shot a gun.
What was your first shooting experience like? I mean, so did you grow up around guns at all? Were they ever talked about, or what was kind of your upbringing around firearms?
Nothing really.
Zero.
Yeah, not at all. My dad, I don't even think had a gun, and when I got up here, I went out with this guy and sent some freedom downrange, and
yeah, some freedom seeds.
That's right, yeah. and it just, I don't know, it just everything from there kind of it hooked, and I think I bought my first firearm from you. It was your H&K 45.
Oh yeah.
I was looking for just like a general home defense weapon.
That'll do the trick.
Yeah. A little, a pistol that packs and punch.
Yeah.
And we went out and shot that a couple times. You were just getting started into like action pistol at the time.
Yeah.
And so we went out and did some of that stuff, and I was just like, man, this is so much fun. Moving and shooting and engaging targets and stuff. And I was like, this is a blast.
Well, back up. So you were a college baseball player.
I did. Yeah, I played college baseball.
You were involved in all kinds of sports.
Yeah. So I played at Cal State Monterey Bay.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, Cal State University Monterey Bay, which is where I met my wife. But yeah, I've played in sports.
And you became a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Been involved with CrossFit, a bunch of other things. So like sports.
So fitness
is
like a primary focus of yours.
Yeah, no, just fitness and just in general. Yeah. It's kind of always been a big thing. I was an athlete. I pitched. I don't know if I'd call myself an athlete, but I can move around a little bit. When we would, go and move around and move and shoot, it was, it seemed like it I mean, you said it came easy to me, like, you know, when I engage in targets and stuff.
Well, there's such a correlation between being a pitcher and shooting.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a huge correlation between that. It's that hand-eye coordination of doing something with your body to hit a target. It's just a little different mechanism of delivery.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, it was.
the pathways in your brain are extremely similar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe you. So, yeah.
Trust your.
It would be even more similar if you were shooting like skeet, for example.
Oh, totally.
Like that would be even more similar.
Yeah.
So
I remember specifically in 2020, kind of when, you know, COVID started to happen and people were, you know, I mean, especially early on in COVID, had some complications with our second, you know, with the pregnancy of our second child. And so we were in the hospital. We got released from the hospital the same day that the stay-at-home order got put in place.
oh, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. So that was like a very kind of interesting time. And I just remember that like I need to, and people were getting fights at Costco over like toilet paper and stuff.
Yeah, it's bad.
And I was just like, all right, this is ridiculous. Like if people are going to be getting in fights over toilet paper at Costco, like I need to be able to like, I want to have a gun on my person and be able to protect myself if something, you know, if shit were to hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking that like while we were in the hospital, and then like I went down to the sheriff's office a week or two afterwards and got my concealed carry license, and then I bought a gun probably in that same week, and I bought just a little P320, compact P320, just a carry pistol.
Yeah.
And I bought a SIG specifically because Chris used to carry this amazingly awesome X5 Legion that
The beast.
the beast, which now belongs to me. So, which is a late, but
That is so funny.
not too long after that, I actually worked with Lorena Noveski on a purchase of a house, and
That's really cool.
made friends with them.
Yeah.
Through, I don't need to get into that story, but I had a friend who was really close friends with one of her employees, and anyway, I got involved in this transaction.
And for those that don't know, can you explain what Noveski is?
Yeah, so Noveski is a AR company. They make, you know, assault rifles, and they're run and operated here in Grants Pass, and they're one of the more popular reputable
Modern
rifle brands.
sporting rifles.
Modern sporting rifles.
Not assault rifles.
Armalite rifle, similar platform.
That's
Yes.
right. Yes.
AR
Yes.
does not, just as an FYI, AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle. So that just throwing that out to the ether.
Of course.
Not you, but to the ether.
Yeah, the ethers. To those people out there watching. Yeah, for sure.
But no, it's a really high-end firearm manufacturing company, I would say.
And they're
high-end
right
product.
here in Grass Pass.
Yeah,
This is
right
a
here. in
huge
Grants Pass.
local
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. And so I had the pleasure of working with her on this purchase of a house. During that escrow process, she invited me to go to a pretty prestigious handgun class with her, and that was a Haley strategic class.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Haley, I don't know his whole story, but he used to be like really big with Magpul and used to do all these instructional videos. And then he started Haley Strategic, and he does these firearms courses now that I think are phenomenal. And since then, I think I've done 5 of their courses.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of their
That's
classes.
5 weeks worth of classes,
Yeah.
basically.
So in each class, each of one of their blocks is a 3-day block, and it's all day. You start at like 7 in the morning, and you pretty much go till 7 at night, unless you're doing their D3 class, which is their disruptive environments class, which is a night course. So I've done 2 handgun low light vehicle darkness courses.
Now, in maybe getting a little ahead of us,
Mm-hmm.
you're now moving into a law enforcement career, right?
Not at this point, no.
Not at this point.
No. So this was in.
Well, that was my question. Was this
Yeah.
before that shift?
This was before the law enforcement shift.
So
Yeah.
this was just educating
Yeah.
Daniel on how to operate firearms.
Yeah.
and
Operate a
weapons.
firearm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been shooting guns for probably, from the first time that you and I went out was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. But I've been shooting like heavily, like a lot, for probably only about 2.5 to 3 years.
There was
Shooting
like this
handguns a
night
lot.
and day transformation that I didn't even know was happening. And I'm like, Daniel went from like trying to figure out how to load that mag to like totally tactical out. Like,
Totally,
Sounds-
totally tactical for sure. I literally immersed myself into everything.
Yeah.
I YouTubed everything. I took these classes. I learned about gear. I learned about other equipment, and it's just been my passion for the last 3 years.
so you went from admittedly a pretty successful real estate business, team, everything else, to shifting gears towards law enforcement. Not
Right.
because the money was so much better.
No. Yeah, so that's like, I'd say probably around the same time that you and I went out and shot for the first time was also the same time that I went on a ride along with my friend Sergeant Ainsworth, who's a sergeant at the Jackson County Sheriff's Office.
Gotcha.
And it was like one of the most fun days that I've had in like a long time. We went on 2 code runs that day. So there was a deputy that was in a fight with a bum down by the railroad tracks, and we came from Station 1, and we're doing like 120 on Crater Lake Highway, and we had like we did all these different things throughout the day, and it was just like, it was so much fun. And the more and more I engaged in these classes and engaged in these firearms and met law enforcement people and started to study law enforcement and like watch them in like YouTube and things like that, it just became more and more of something that I just had to do. I just felt like it was something that was calling me. Every time I pass a police car, every time I, see their cherries and berries going, the reds and blues going. Cherries and berries, buddy.
Learning a lot of new lingo today.
Yeah. I've been bringing all my cop lingo out today. And for the record, I've only been a cop for like 2 months. So, and I'm still like very, very much in training. So I can't say that I'm like full on deputy.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Mike Lacer actually calls me a quarter deputy. And I tell him that the quarter of it is I know how to use these and I know how to use the gun. So the rest of it I don't know anything about. Criminal law, traffic law, any of that kind of stuff. Like I'm very unversed on it at this point.
Are you happy with it right now?
I am in absolute love with it. Yeah. No, it is so much fun. I'm just the kind of person that loves to learn and loves to just like be doing different stuff all the time. And that's what law enforcement is. I mean, there's never a call that's the same. And there's so much to learn. I feel like there's more to learn with doing law enforcement than there was to get like a real estate license, sadly.
Yeah, we don't talk about how easy it is to get into real estate and my feelings on that. We'll skip that today.
No, that different podcast. Ease of entry.
Yes. One of the things, and the reason that we were just, wanted to get Daniel on here, and I thought it would be an interesting, basically I wanted to shoot. That's the reality. I wanted to think of a reason we had to get together to shoot that was for business.
Absolutely.
So these bullets today are tax write-offs, right?
Yeah, this is all write-off. This is all business
all my
building.
bullets are tax write-offs now.
Any day of the week, dude. That's true. Heck yeah.
But helping us out here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Tax dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen.
God bless America.
Anyway, but one of the things that I was looking for an opportunity at some point to talk about was this whole kind of, I'll call it psychology behind carry, or psychology behind either personal defense or, winning a fight. I don't care if it's a gunfight or what it is, but I have a pet peeve, and I have a lot of friends, I'll call them friends, a lot of associates, different people who are gun people. And let's face it, they own a bunch of guns. They probably own enough ammo to supply a small army. But of that big pool of people, I've got about 6 or 7 close friends, maybe 8, who I would consider proficient with a firearm in some degree. Like if something happened, I would want them in a room that my kids also happen to be in if a bad guy was in there. There's only a few people that, like in my friend circle, that the rest of them I'd be like, my kids better get out of there immediately because the bad guy might get shot, but everybody else is probably going to get hit too.
Hit the deck.
And worse though, there's a lot of people I think who aren't even prepared. Like the guns don't even leave the safe or leave the gun room or whatever, and there's no level of competency with it. And I wanted to share a little bit about the reality check that I got a few years ago, which was what prompted me to get into action pistol shooting in the first place. And then, we're going to switch to a B-roll time where we'll actually on film, do some different shooting here, but also talk about why some of these basics are important. But I realized I'd carried a pistol almost every day since I turned 21, got my concealed carry, but I sucked with a pistol. And this was the revelation I hit about 26 years old, 27 years old. So that it had been like a 6-year period of doing
burn
that.
time on that.
I was a walking hazard if something bad had happened. I was probably going to shoot myself trying to get it out of the holster before I ever did any good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's slight exaggeration, but well, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
So like anything else that, I'm kind of like you. I like to grow. I like to learn. I I'm competitive by nature, extremely competitive by nature. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it well. So I took a couple of classes, but I spent a ton of time on YouTube and a ton of time just self-educating, just learning, reading, read a couple of different books. What was the one guy's name? Anyway, one of the USPSA guys, but
Peterson?
no, anyway.
Never mind. I'm wrong.
It'll come to me about midnight tonight.
Yeah, tonight
I'll
we'll
wake
get a
up,
text.
you'll get a
Hey,
text.
that's what I was thinking.
But I went through that, and I just was like, you know what, I need to shoot. I need to put rounds down range. I need to put a lot of rounds down range. And I started learning about, concealed carry and drawing and presentation and transitions, and the whole list kind of went on. And then went to the psychology. Sought out a couple classes for the psychology part, the situational awareness part. And like, I had to have a heart to heart with myself. Like, I'm carrying a gun. Am I willing to use it?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have that reality check. And I'm like, well, actually the answer is yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't really until I was married and kids were on the way and whatever that became a very affirmative. Yes, in a given situation, I'm going to protect. When I was single, I wasn't as committed to that. And I was like, I think I would do something. Got married, had kids, family started becoming so much more important, and it became an absolute clarity in my mind. I'm going to protect.
Right.
So,
if I don't, who's gonna?
I can live with, I think, it's not firsthand, this is in my mind, I can better live with ending someone's life than not being able to protect my son or daughter or wife and something bad happened to them. I can better live with that consequence than the latter.
Sure.
That's where my mind is.
Absolutely.
So, again, kind of the psychology, the term I like to use is beercan blasting. It's the typical shooting experience for the average person.
Yeah. And they do beer can blasting once every couple of years.
Yeah. And they think in their minds that they're proficient. Yeah, and it's amazing the different things you hear. So, question: average gunfight lasts how long?
Not very.
3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
So, do you think the average person carrying a gun can get a round off in 3 seconds, even if it's on them?
Probably not.
It's debatable.
Mm-hmm.
You think the average competition shooter can get 15 rounds off in 3 seconds?
Maybe not the average, but a few. A good solid handful for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I've seen somebody get 6 rounds off in under a second, or 1.5 seconds for sure.
So, like, those pieces of information struck me in a pretty profound way. Like, oh man, I got work to do. That active self-protection channel on YouTube, I think a lot of people watch that. I'm sure you do.
I've seen it, yeah.
Those guys, John Carrera and those guys, I think I learned a lot when I was first trying to understand what I was getting into, like what the mental shift I was trying to do was. I learned from watching a lot of those videos and the way they broke them down, the different things that were happening. I got a reality check of like, oh my goodness, it's important. And I hope anyone who's listening who carries a gun or is thinking about carrying a gun realize the responsibility that comes with that. That's where I'm angling. Yeah. There's a responsibility that comes with being a gun person. And most gun people have never even thought about that responsibility.
Right.
I shouldn't say most. I'm afraid that most. I don't know that to be fact, but many people that I know, I would have concerns about. So a cool evolution, so at about the same time you did your ride along, which you said was like 2020?
No, my ride along was probably in 18 or 19.
Okay. So when COVID hit and everything shut down, several of the guys in our leadership at church, we formed a church security group, which partially because we didn't shut down during COVID, and there was a lot of unrest, but we felt like keeping the church open was really important. So we had formed that, and then we realized we needed to get the training and different things. And then I watched the proficiency level of 5 or 6 guys go from a hazard to society to pretty solid.
Yeah.
You've shot with some of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all really good.
None of them are going to win any competitions, but every one of them, in a bad situation, my kids were in the room, I would have a level of peace.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are not going to accidentally get shot. Relatively smart decisions are going to be made, but it came from intentionality, which is a word I know you use a lot. It's a word we use a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to carry a gun and you're not intentional, I really, that makes me mad,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Like, it makes me frustrated.
Yeah.
It makes me scared for if you ever had to use it, the people around you. You know, I'm as pro Second Amendment as it gets, and I would rather there be less regulation than more. I'm not an advocate of more regulation in any way, shape, or form, but I'm also not an advocate of people not taking ownership over that decision.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not just that. It's the same thing if you're going to drive a vehicle. It's the same thing if you're going to do anything that's dangerous. It's the same thing if you're going to be a doctor. Whatever it is, like, you need to take anything that could be dangerous to society,
Yeah.
to yourself, seriously, with intentionality.
I think you owe it to most people who conceal carry. You know, I mean, the idea is that they want to protect themselves or their family. I mean, that's the whole point of it.
Well, you're a sheepdog.
Right.
You've adopted that mentality at one level or another.
Or you'd hope. You know, you'd hope. I mean, like you said, you carried for your whole life thinking that, oh, you know, can protect. I just think if you're going to carry a weapon with the intention of protecting yourself and protecting others, like, you need to be taking some sort, like, you got to take it seriously. And so doing some training and spending some time with that weapon so you can get familiar with it is incredibly important.
Right.
And I agree with what you said. And I would add that, you know, my introduction to firearms and carrying firearms outside of a hunting scope was when I went to gunsmithing school at 18. That was the first time that I was ever exposed to that mentality. Lived in Arizona. It's an open carry, conceal carry state as long as you have a residency there. So I was able to conceal carry after the age of 21, but open carry with no permit or whatever over the age of 18.
It's the same as here.
Yeah, exactly. But I was from California, and that was very new to me. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have a lot of training in that arena, but I had guns and I carried them and I became proficient with them out of necessity because I was at school and I was guiding and I was doing this mixed bags of stuff that required it. But I ended up becoming close friends with a sheriff's deputy out there.
Okay.
And ended up doing ride-alongs, ended up going and meeting him and the other sheriffs out at different locations and doing different things. And there just so happened to be an excellent firearm training facility very close to our campus. And there was a lot of overlap between those worlds. And so the main thing that was ingrained in me at a young age, as I began carrying firearms with the intent to use them for something other than punching holes in paper, was the
Or beer cans.
Or beer cans,
Yeah.
right? Is the mentality first, action second. Because you can carry a gun all day. It can be in your glove box, it can be on your person, it can be in your closet. But the biggest defense that we have as individuals operating in any aspect of society is between our ears and facing forward with our eyes.
Situational awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you guys can probably speak to it a little bit better than I can, but there's different color gradients to the situation that you're in, representing threat levels and awareness and stuff like
What's
that.
the one you really don't want to be in?
Red.
Black.
Black.
You see, I don't know.
Yeah. Black is
Black is you've basically lost all control and you're only reacting.
Interesting.
Red is you're engaged in a bad situation.
and you're still able to think, but you're on super high alert.
Okay. Black is brain dead. You're just responding.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they get to black, they don't even remember it afterwards.
So it's like the videos of the cops that are after they're in a shooting, like they're involved in a gunfight. They start picking up the casings because they kind of go back to they go back to like being at the range and practicing and picking up their brass.
Great book actually about this, and you're probably referencing this, but it's a different one. It's called On Combat.
Oh yeah, by Colonel Grossman. Yes. Yeah.
Great book.
Incredible.
Talks about all this stuff in there.
Same author as On Killing.
Yes, On Killing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think On Killing was the first, and On Combat was the second.
That's correct. And he talks about that same kind of situation. There was a guy who was working like on disarming somebody.
Yeah, he handed the gun back to him.
So he would train with his wife. His wife would hold the gun. He would disarm his wife, and his wife would hand him the gun back, or he would hand the gun back to his wife, and he'd disarm his wife and do this whole thing. And he would do this all the time, rep after rep after rep. And then he walked into a 7-Eleven one day, and some guy pointed a gun at him, and he disarmed the guy, and then gave him the gun back. Like, and it was just like it was ingrained in his training.
We're talking about screwing up the guy's OODA loop.
Right. You're like, hello. Well, and that's like at home, mag in, charge the weapon.
Right.
When you're at home and you drop your mag and you dump that round in the tube, what's your next reaction? 9 times out of 10.
What is yours?
What do? Gun is empty. It's in your hand. Before you put it down, what do you normally do?
Slide down.
Well, I check the barrel. Like I visually inspect it.
Right, but do you drop the hammer?
Yeah.
Well, after I visually inspect it.
Right, exactly. So one of the most common firearm malfunctions or like negligent discharges is people clack, like they put a mag in, they rack it, and they go back to what they're doing when they're unloading their firearm, and they discharge rounds into the ground.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the muscle memory is magazine, slide, empty, bang. And in reverse, it's magazine loaded, bang.
So my brother-in-law had a very similar muscle memory thing. So he was doing landscape contracting work.
Yeah.
And he was running a weed eater all the time. And he shot himself, reholstering, because he was used to just running a weed eater with this finger clamped down on the trigger all the time.
Oh, man.
And he just automatically, just like he's holding the weapon or his tool every day at work.
Yeah.
Did that as he was reholstering, he shot himself through the quad.
Jeez, no thank you. Hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass.
Hard pass on shooting myself in the leg. But that...
And he went to black after that, by the way.
I would imagine.
He went to stage black.
I would imagine. Yeah, a little shock. But like that for me, just as examples, like I guess the notion of existing in yellow, like one, you're aware of your surroundings. If there are threats or some kind of unique situation that's presenting itself, not only are you aware of it, but other people around you will take note, and you become less of a target for being on the receiving end of some kind of negativity. But then also when you're handling a firearm in and around people that you do not want to shoot, having that awareness and telling yourself, yes, I'm manipulating something right now that can end life is immensely important. Because if you do kind of fall into that beer can blasting kind of nonchalant, oh, we're having a great day, we're having a lot of fun, that's when accidents do occur. And for civilians, other than, not law enforcement, military, or whatever other bracket you want to fall into, we own that bullet with no legal recourse from point A to point Z. And so for me, and I don't know what your guys' instances have been, but, I've had firearms drawn on me. I've been in situations where I've had guns out and we weren't entirely sure how things were going to go. And I'll never forget it. The first time anyone drew a firearm on me, I entered what I would call a flow state to where it was the most relaxed I had ever felt in my life because I was instantly aware that it was all going to be over very quickly if this went sideways. So I went from, hey, how's it going, to, oh, yeah, here we are, boys. It was a weird mental shift. And after that, to your point about where am I at comfort-wise about using a firearm in a defensive situation, my go-to is I'm always going to try to diffuse that situation with zero violence necessary.
Absolutely.
I'm going to avoid that situation physically. I'm going to avoid it mentally if I can. But if I'm entered into it, I'm going to take every possible step up until that balloon rising to not engage with any level of lethal force.
Right.
And be loud and, be scared, all of the scared hand positions, all that stuff. But then being able to judge that situation, understand my distance, understand behind the target, go through all of the same target shooting mental preparation steps to then know, okay, if I get out of this, I'm just going to be able to walk away. But if this breaks, I've already, just like ranging a bull and ranging a tree first and knowing where the branches are when you're hunting archery and your pins need to be offset so that way you don't hit the branch. All that same mental preparation goes into that one moment of, hey, I'm on a razor's edge here. I want to make sure that if this does snap, I've done everything in my power to limit bad.
Right. Well, and that does two things. Not only does it give you the best chance of de-escalating the situation, if the situation escalates, you're going to be able to re-articulate everything you just went through, which is going to reaffirm your position, your affirmative defense position, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Because every bullet does have an attorney behind it, or attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I pray to God that day never finds me. However, with the career that I just entered, it's a lot more likely that day will find me.
Yes.
A lot sooner than it'll find either one of you. But I also believe that I mean, with proper training, I think you can prepare and you can put yourself, you're more likely to move into that state that you found yourself in. But I think I'm not sure you have the opportunity to choose how you react.
No.
I think you can train and you can do as much stuff as you want, but if that day finds you, your body's going to do what your body's going to do.
Default to your highest level of training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that I can have enough awareness to manipulate and be in that state where I can, create the best outcome for myself and those around me. But it's a pretty scary thing when you.
It's a heavy topic, gentlemen. I mean, it's like
I think the long and the short of it is, it's something that if you own a gun, you carry a gun, you need to think about it. Like, that's the whole.
Yeah.
That would be the one takeaway that I would hope everyone would have who listens to this, is they would check themselves. Where am I at? You know, and this is, I mean, just as I'm talking about this, I haven't gone through that mental exercise in a couple of years where, hey, where am I at? I did that today again. I'm like, oh yeah, well, no, I'm still in the same place. Nothing's changed. But like, to check, where are you at in your level of training, your level of preparedness?
But you, like what you're saying though, you have to put yourself in that headspace.
Yeah.
It's a mental prepreration thing.
So,
and I mean, and going back to like Colonel Grossman, that was a lot of the stuff that he had in the on combat book, or I guess in on killing as well, but reactionary targets. You know, he did, for those that are not familiar with the book, there was a whole series of studies that they did on lethal effectiveness on force fighting, going back to, I think it was certain aspects of the Revolutionary War, but mostly focused on Civil War and forward. And basically, the hit ratios for the amount of bullets flying through the air was absurdly low. And then what you study is once they changed the target shape from circular targets to silhouette targets, people were mentally primed to engage a human physique rather than a circular target, and we're not shying away from putting bullets on the new target. And now moving into modern combat training for soldiers and law enforcement, you guys have turning targets that are a known color. And instead of saying, oh, that's a person over there, I'm going to shoot that person, it goes from no threat to threat. There's a reaction. And then that helps take the human psyche out of the bodily behavior. And as a civilian, that is a really sketchy thing to practice, because if you are strictly reacting to something, your reaction may be valid, but the outcome may be invalid.
So here's another reason for training. I don't think there's a single person in our church security team that in training with airsoft has not shot a friendly person at some point during training.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, so check this out. So they have, at the sheriff's office, they have a virtual simulator.
Yeah.
It's like a 180-degree simulator, and they have all these different scenarios. And so we did some training on this last week, and they had me in a situation with a traffic stop. A guy, this car stops, this guy gets out of the car, passenger gets out of the car, runs off to the side. So you're kind of trying to keep your eyes on the passenger, but the guy's like yelling at you and this and that. Why are you stopping me? This and that. And then, so in the scenario is he reaches into the car, and you have to like say, so sir, keep your hands out of the car. I need to see your hands. And he like quickly reaches out and essentially shoots me. Right. And so that was the scenario before I could get a shot off. Like, that's how fast it happened. And they're like, okay, let's replay the scenario and see what happens again. And so they run through the same scenario. The guy's doing the same exact thing. He reaches into the car, but this time he pulls out a cell phone, and I blasted that dude 4 times before I even realized that he was carrying a cell phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what I'm saying is that when you're in that high stress environment, like, and I was reacting off of what I had just previously done like 20 seconds prior to that, right? But in that scenario, untrained, if some guy's engaging you in that manner, super angry and all that kind of stuff, and he reaches in there and pulls something out, chances are you're not going to know what to do, right? And now I know, and that's the problem with law enforcement too now, is like they have all these training scenarios where this stuff happens, and then it happens out in the real world, and somebody doesn't actually have a gun, they have a pencil, or like, and but yeah,
or death by cop scenarios,
right?
That happen.
But it's just being able to put yourself in those scenarios and train for them and think about them, and that's, you're more likely to make less mistakes when that situation does come find you.
So, long and the short, get training.
Yeah.
If you're going to put yourself in a position to have to use a weapon, get training.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
And there's this old adage too, like going in bear country, everybody's all about 10 millimeters against bears and stuff, and really high powered handguns. And I remember it was like an older gun writer and firearm guy, and he said something to the effect of, listen, if your life's being threatened, it doesn't matter if you have a 44 Magnum or you have an air gun. As long as you have something that you are capable of using and confident in, your likelihood of success in defending yourself skyrockets versus using what everybody else is telling you to use. So whether it be if you're like, hey,
Are you making fun of my 10 millimeter?
I'm a little bit making fun of you. No,
That's a hand cannon.
that's a hand cannon.
Yeah.
Hey, I shot it before I went to Alaska for an entire day when we did our training. I forced myself to use it,
Yeah.
which I normally use 9 millimeter for. It was a little bit painful,
That
but I
snaps.
made myself, send about 250 rounds downrange before I went to Alaska.
There you go.
With
Good
it.
deal.
So
There's a detective at the sheriff's office that shoots a 10 mil.
Oh,
He
seriously?
carries it every day.
It's like the modern dirty Harry right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
anyway,
But yeah, anyway, carry pepper spray, whatever you're confident with. But if you're at a point in your life where you want to carry a handgun or you want to use a firearm for personal defense, train with it in safe environments. Like you said, seek out training, but utilize YouTube and become proficient, because without that level of proficiency, not only are you potentially adding a firearm to somebody else's arsenal in a situation.
Hey, you guys don't want to train and use your firearms. You just keep buying that stuff, because people like us that know how to use them, when the shit hits the fan, we'll come and get them.
Find them.
I'll come and take them from you.
But yeah, it's like get training, become proficient, and yeah, make sure that you don't hurt somebody that you're not intending to hurt.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. So from here,
Let's go practice.
we're gonna have a little bit of fun. So we're all fairly competitive people,
Lightly.
him and I especially.
No. Me?
You?
Me?
Never. Not
No.
once.
So we'll
Not one
go
day.
set up a few things that we can compete a little on
Yeah.
and see where our own thresholds are.
Heck yeah, I'm down.
All right,
This
let's
is gonna
do
be fun. With this target, okay? There it is. Let's go.
1-5.
Let's go. Shooter, are you ready? Stand by. Fight through it! Fight through it! Fight through it! Get him! Get him! Fight him! Only 812.
Hey, press checks are free, boys. All right? Is the winning time. Anybody count to 6?
That was sick.
That was
Okay.
6.
209. Yeah, I'll take it. With a. Oh wait, what did you have?
I already did my push-ups.
Oh.
He's being nice to me because I shot.
Oh, we're not playing. Okay. Okay. Rules are flexible. I see how this works.
Oh, we're all doing push-ups.
We're all doing push-ups because we all suck.
Is what's happening right now. 7 push-ups for. I can't even tell you how many.
the fun one.
So 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What? Stand by.
Hey!
Fight through it! Fight through it!
Boom, boom! And you done run out of bullets. Man. See, this is what being out in nature is all about. This is what we're all about at Atlanta Blast. That's what we're all about. Right here. Push-ups and bullet holes. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Atlanta Blast podcast.
A little bit heavy today.
A little heavy today, but thank you for staying with us and getting training. I'm Sam Terrell
Chris Martin.
and Daniel Bifano. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Deputy, thank you.
Deputy Dan.
Deputy Dan.
Deputy Dan. Deputy Dan in the house. See you guys next time.
Thank you.